Okay, so it's just ticked over to 4:15. So good afternoon to everybody, and I'd like you to welcome to today's Catholic Learning online event, which is Seesaw in a primary classroom. So to commence today's session, we're going to start with an acknowledgement of country and a prayer. I would like to respectfully acknowledge the traditional custodians of the lands upon which we are meeting. As we gather on this sacred land, let us acknowledge that we are standing on country. On these lands, age-old ceremonies, celebrations, initiations, and renewals have been performed. We acknowledge the elders, past, present, and emerging, and their ancestors who have a deep relationship with country. While there has been great change to this land over the generations, we know in our hearts that the story and spirit of Aboriginal people will always be written in this landscape. We call on God's grace to protect us in this time of uncertainty, to guide us with our learning, to support us as we navigate new things, to shield our loved ones from harm, to comfort those who are lonely, and to be with us in everything that we do. Amen. In the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. A couple of quick housekeeping messages before we get started. As with all of these events, it's being recorded and it's going to be uploaded to the website, so you can have a look in future if you want to go back and check something out. If you're not currently speaking or asking a question, if you would have your microphone muted, that would be wonderful. And if video on is always better for the presenter can get some feedback about what they're saying, whether it's connecting, whether it matches your experience. So if you have the bandwidth, it would be great if you can turn your video on. And of course, if you ask questions in the chat, there's lots of people in the background there that will help out and answer those questions. Now, if this course is registered within your diocese, then you must complete this evaluation. However, even if it's not registered, we'd still love you to complete the evaluation because that gives us data about what we're doing and how we can improve it for the future. You can either scan that QR code or you can go to the URL that is at the top here. And we'll also put that URL in the chat towards the end of the session. This evaluation will stay open until the 3rd of December. Okay, so our learning intentions for today is that you will learn about digital portfolios and their relationship to the learning loop. You'll build upon your existing knowledge of Seesaw. You'll learn how to collaborate with other faculty members. You're going to learn an awful lot looking at this. You're going to learn how to create, assign, and provide feedback on student activities. You're going to view a demonstration of Seesaw. And if you would like to, you can engage in the platform in real time. We're going to have some time for questions and answers at the end of the session as well. And we're going to explore how Seesaw can facilitate powerful learning for all students. And we'll know we'll be successful when you understand how Seesaw supports the learning loop, connects students, the learning community and their families, and you understand the benefits of Seesaw for schools to take learning to the next level by providing analytics, visibility, curriculum alignment, and tools for student empowerment. So we're going to achieve a lot in the next hour. And to help us do that, we have a wonderful presenter, Blair McDaniel. And you can see Blair, hopefully smiling just in the background there. I can see Blair. She's joined us on Thanksgiving Eve. It's about 9:15, she said, on the west coast of America. So she's given up preparations for Thanksgiving to join us. She's been a part of Seesaw since early 2018 as a global sales partner. And she builds relationships with Seesaw schools right around the world. Before Seesaw, she worked in publishing and digital learning technology, and she was formerly an elementary school technology facilitator, whilst also teaching 3rd grade, which I imagine is quite a challenge. She has an eagerness to explore the school-home connection and its impact on student learning. And Blair's role at Seesaw is to assist school-wide Seesaw for Schools implementations. today she's going to tell us a lot about the benefits of Seesaw for schools and also for our CE learning community. So Blair, would like to welcome you today. I thank you in advance for what you're going to share, and I heard great reports back from the previous session as well. So I'm really looking forward to this. If I could hand over to you, that would be great.
Hey, thank you so much for that introduction, Mark, and good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining today. I'm going to share my screen, Mark. And I think it says, I think I have to have permission from the host to share. Okay. And just let me know when you are able to see my screen. May take a few seconds. I see Mark's giving me a thumbs up. Great. All right. Thank you so much. So as Mark mentioned, my name is Blair McDaniel. I've been with Seesaw for 3 years now. Previously, I've worked in education and technology as well as publishing. And I've really enjoyed this role, being able to work with organizations like yourself, getting you geared up and prepared for Seesaw for Schools rollout and implementation. Along the way, if you have any questions, feel free to stop me. We do have the chat box, and I believe Mark will be sharing some of those questions with me along the way. But if you have anything else come up, feel free to send that in the chat box, or you can take yourself off of mute. I'm going to share our agenda with you, and this is what we'll be covering. So we'll start with a quick refresher of what Seesaw is, the free version that many of your schools are currently using. From there, we'll jump into the actual platform, so you'll get to see what Seesaw looks like, both as a student as well as a teacher and an administrator. As I mentioned, we have a Q&A session at the end, but feel free to drop questions in along the way. If you want me to slow down or clarify anything, or if you like me to revisit a certain part of the platform, feel free to stop me and we can definitely do that. If we don't get to all the questions at the end, I'm happy to send you an email response. I'll be sharing my email address as well. So you can feel free to reach out to me anytime. Without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. So before I jump into the presentation, I want to volunteer to share with me what you already know about Seesaw, something that you're hoping to learn, or what your idea of Seesaw is, or what context you've used it in. So feel free to drop it in the chat box, or you can take yourself off mute, and we'll just take a couple volunteers. Everyone was shy in our last session, so don't be shy. You can also just drop it in the chat box if you like. Mark, are you seeing any responses yet?
Hello, can you hear us?
Hi, yes, I can.
Hi, it's Fiona Carney. I'm in Mackay here with Kathy Douglas. We used Seesaw this year with COVID, so that was our introduction to Seesaw, and it was the first time we'd used something like that, just to reach out to the children that were at home and to put all their learning up there, and also for our daily communication. So basically we had a check-in every morning with our calendar and our prayer and what we were wanting the children to do that day, and all of our work was put up there for the children. And we also looked into doing a bit of the assessment tracking that we could do. We didn't really have the Seesaw for Schools, so we were a little bit limited, but we found it a really, really easy to use platform, very user-friendly, coming in new. And so did the parents. The parents really enjoyed it. And the feedback was really positive. The children loved it. And we kept practicing one, so it was really user-friendly. Yeah.
Blair, if I could jump in there.
Sure, yeah.
I'm just having a look at the chat. There's quite a few have come through now. But one of the first ones, along with some people who haven't used it a lot, is people have jumped onto it during COVID. And so I think quite a few of the participants here are in that same boat, where it was relatively new to them and it was a wonderful tool for them through that COVID period. So I'm seeing that appear repeatedly, along with new to Seesaw.
Okay, awesome. Thank you all so much for sharing that. Yeah, we've definitely seen a lot of folks from your organization reach out that have started using Seesaw with the pandemic going on and making that switch to remote learning earlier this year, as well as many folks who have been working with Seesaw in the past. So definitely a good mix. We'll actually take a look at your usage across CENet, so we'll get to see how that usage has changed over time. So as you just described, as you were sharing your experience with Seesaw, Seesaw is just that. It's a platform for students to be able to share their work. It's a way to empower the students and give the control and ownership of their learning back to the student and making it a student-driven experience rather than something that's just dictated to the students or something that they don't have as much ownership in. So Seesaw is built on the learning loop, which connects teachers, families, and students and engages everyone along the way so that they can all participate and all be active and engaged with the student's progress over time. Within Seesaw, something that we'll explore in a little bit is the open-ended tools that it features. And that's a great way for students to express their learning in the way that makes the most sense for them or the way that they like to express their learning. So some of those include drawing, annotating their work. You'll see voice recording, video recording, and we'll actually get to explore and play with those tools a little later in the presentation. So before we jump into Seesaw, I wanted to give you all a quick snapshot of your usage across, or your all-time usage across CENet. So you'll see here, the first stat is 68,971 family members that are connected. And for those of you who joined us last week, you'll see that this number, some of these numbers changed a little bit. So that's an additional 128 family members that have been added to their students' portfolios in the last week. Here you'll see the number of ambassadors. So there's currently 163 across all of your schools. Do we have any ambassadors on the call? Just curious. Okay, I see Karen. Right, awesome. Above this, you'll see the number of student portfolios that are have been created all time. So this represents all of your students that are currently linked to a class, whether it's free Seesaw or Seesaw for Schools. And that's 101,724. And that's a delta of 323 portfolios have been created since we last chatted last week in our session. And then this last number is incredible. This is the number of pieces of work that students and teachers have added all time. And that's just over 6.5 million, with 55,000 of those being since we met last, was that Tuesday or Wednesday? So lots of engagement happening across your schools. This is incredible. Does anyone have any questions about your usage before we move on? Alrighty. So now we're going to take a look at what Seesaw looks like when it's applied to a problem that students are asked to solve. So everyone take about 60 seconds and just read through this problem. I'll also read it aloud and we'll see how the student was able to solve it. So the problem says Jenny has $25 and she earns $10 for each lawn that she mows. Jenny wants to buy a concert ticket that costs $65. Enter the minimum number of lawns that Jenny needs to mow to be able to buy the concert ticket. And we see here that the student had an incorrect answer, but just by writing that number, it doesn't give us a lot of insight into how the student actually solved this problem. So now, if we take a look at the student actually writing over this problem, we can see that they've annotated a little bit, they circled some things, they worked out some math here, and then we, of course, see their answer. But this still doesn't give us a complete picture of how the student came to this final answer and what they might have been struggling with when they got the incorrect answer. So now we're going to take this problem and use this and see how Seesaw for Schools tools actually help the student to solve it. And this will actually be a real life example. This was shared with us from a district during a professional development session. So this is shared with the permission of the family and the student, but this is an actual problem that students use Seesaw to explore. So I'm going to play this and just give me a thumbs up if you're able to hear the video okay.
Jenny has $25 and she earns $10 each for each log that she loads. Jenny wants to buy a concert ticket that costs $65. So, oh, and the word that I will right now is load and minimum. But I have heard them before, but I don't know what they mean. So Jenny has $25, and she earns every which the month she makes $10. So to get $65, she needs to law or something 4 times because 4 times equals $10. So she does it 4 more times, she gets to 65. Because if you add 25 plus 40, which that's 4 times right here, times 10.
So here in this example, you can see the student used some creative tools within Seesaw. They were asked to explain their how they came up with their answer and to identify anything that they were struggling with. So you can hear earlier in the video, the student says they don't necessarily understand what the word mows means. They didn't understand lawn, and they didn't understand minimum. So this gives the teacher some very important insight into what the student is struggling with. It's not necessarily the mathematics, but it was more so the vocabulary. And this is an excerpt from a class that was focusing, the class was composed of English language learners. So the student was still learning some of the vocabulary that they use in mathematics. And this helps the teacher to know, okay, we should focus on mathematic vocabulary. We should focus on the meaning of minimum. So by using these creative tools, you have a lot more insight into what the student is actually thinking as they're solving the problem. And you can see a couple of times they mentioned the number 4. So they do understand the mathematics, but they weren't quite confident with their answer because they were struggling with the vocabulary. And this is a common theme that we hear from a lot of teachers that are making the transition into Seesaw, is that they're able to see a lot more into what their student was getting at. In addition to these tools that the student used, there are additional tools such as the send back feature. So students can create a draft and send that for feedback to their teacher. And the teacher could actually send this back and ask them to rework the problem or give them context as to what minimum means and then let them solve it again. So these tools are very creative, or I'm sorry, they're very important for students to be creative when they're explaining themselves and figuring out a difficult problem. So you all have heard me talk plenty. So we're going to do something, a little brain break. We're going to jump into the platform and you all will actually be the students and I'll be the teacher. So we'll be using Seesaw together. So I am going to go into my class. Can everyone give me a thumbs up if they can see my screen inside Seesaw? All right, awesome. So I'm going to be adding you all as students. If you're using a mobile device or a laptop or desktop, you can still join this no matter what device you're using. If you're unable to join, feel free to just watch along. I'll be sharing my screen in this view. I'm clicking here, students. Since you all are not connected to my class with email, you can either use the QR code here or you can use the text code. So I'll give you a couple minutes for you to join the class and feel free to just give me a thumbs up once you've been able to join. Okay, I see Mark has joined. I'll give it another minute. Okay, I see some responses in the chat. Melinda says, for some reason, I'm unable to join. In case you are already logged in, I forgot to mention this, if you are logged in on your desktop or in your browser, you can, someone said the QR code is not working. I can generate a new one, no problem. Okay, give it a few more seconds. All right. So what we're going to focus on is you all will actually be completing an activity as if you were a student in my class. If you are still having trouble, feel free to drop that in the chat box. So once you logged in, you should be able to see an activity that I've assigned out to you, and it's called Weekend Fun. If you have not seen it yet, feel free to drop in the chat box and I'll help you find it. Someone said still can't access. Can you put the code in the chat? Sure. Molly, to log in, if you're not already logged into Seesaw, then you can go to app.seesaw.me in your browser. If you already have the Seesaw class app, you can use that as well. Just make sure you log out and select I am a student. Oh, thank you, Joseph, for sharing the link. Okay, so as you're logging in, you should see an activity that's been assigned to you that says Weekend Fun. Can you give me a thumbs up if you see the activity that's been assigned? All right, so I will start the timer for 2 minutes and you all can go ahead and complete it. If you are not joining us, feel free to watch my screen. We'll be going through the responses and sharing them out after the 2 minutes have elapsed. All right, and you all can go ahead and get started now. Okay, I see the responses are coming in. We'll take about 60 more seconds and then we'll share out our responses. And as always, if you have any questions, feel free to put those in the chat box. All right, I see we have several responses coming in. Feel free to keep wrapping up, but I'll start sharing out what some of you have contributed. Just a feature to point out here, you'll see that as students are responding to the teacher's prompt, I'll receive a notification here that I need to approve these. This is a setting that you can explore as a teacher as well as an administrator, and we'll discuss how those settings are applied. But the teacher is able to see the work before it's posted to the student's journal. If they want students to make a revision or make changes or add on to their assignment, they can do that, and then the student can resubmit it for approval. Here you can see the students that have already responded. We have several Claires in this class, and you can see how many responses have been approved, as well as students who have not yet responded. So I'll go ahead and approve all of these, and then we'll start reviewing them together. So we see someone here did a lot of gardening and it was very relaxing. Someone went to the park for a picnic. Someone went to lunch with their family and had fish and chips at the beach and saw dolphins. Oh, someone did reports. I certainly remember that from working in schools. Definitely remember those days. I went to the beach with my friend Sally. We made sandcastles, put up my Christmas lights and tree. That's on my to-do list. Someone made went to the aquarium and saw a man eating shark. Wow. Went to the cousin's farm, spent Sunday horse riding. So you can see here underneath each student's piece of work, you also have the ability to engage with it, both at the teacher level as well as an administrator. And the students can see this in real time, which is really great. It makes the students feel great to know that they're getting actionable insight, they're getting feedback, they're able to hear from their community. Families are also able to leave comments on their students' work as well. Something else I wanted to point out is that when you're assigning something to students, you have a number of different tools that you can use when you're actually assigning work out. I've also included some voice instructions here. Students can use those if they're still learning to read or if they're acquiring a new language. So that way they have both the audio and the visual versions of the instructions. You'll see here that you can also tag learning standards to students' work. That's something that we'll cover in just a moment as well. And then this was assigned to everyone in the class, but you can also assign to just one student or a group of students. Before we take a look at the other aspects of Seesaw, did anyone have any questions? I'll check the chat box, but you can also take yourself off mute and share any questions you have. Do we select the student that's already there, or do we create ourselves as a student? In this demo account I just created, we already had students' names populated, so you can just select one. But normally the students will be able to join, it'll show their name. You're welcome. Okay, so this aspect that we just took a look at is the activities. The very first tab within the Seesaw teacher view is the journal. So here on the left side, you'll see a running tab of students' work, and this is in chronological order. As I mentioned, you can engage with the work as you read through it. And then here on the right side, you'll see all of the students' names. So this is the roster for a given class. You can see how much they've contributed to the class, as well as the last time they posted an assignment. These tools here are for you to add students or families. If you have one student or a situation like this where you are conducting professional development or something like that, you can always manually add them. And we'll talk about how you can bulk upload the students as well. This next tab is activities. This houses all the assignments that you would push out to your students. You can either create these from scratch, or you can select one from our activity library. This is curated by us here at Seesaw. So we create these activities, and we also encourage teachers to create them and submit them for approval to us. You'll see here that there are 3 different options for libraries. My library is something that you yourself can see only. School and district would be school-wide if you have an assignment or a theme that you want everyone to focus on, or everyone in a particular year level or subject. And then community is what we've curated. These are activities that you can use. You'll see that you can select these and favorite them to use later. You can make a copy of them and edit them and customize them if you like to tailor it to your students specifically. And then you can also search by subject as well as year level. Any questions about the activity library? Okay. So going back into the teacher view, the next tab that you'll come across is the inbox. This is where communication happens between you and connected family members, as well as you and your classes. So you'll see you can make any combination of announcements that go out to your students, connected family members, or across the entire school. Some examples are such as like a newsletter, if there's something you want families to see and just read it and you know that they've engaged with it, you can see who's viewed it. If you'd like to send a message specifically to a student's family member or caregiver, you can do that as well. And then here in the notifications tab, this is where you will learn about anything that's happening across your class, whether it's work that's been submitted, something that needs your approval, if there's something that a student wants to add and needs your permission, you can manage all of that through the notifications. You'll see here in this light red or this pink color, these are all the unapproved items. So I have 17 items that you all have just contributed, and I can go through and approve these, or I can send them back. There's also a delete option if there was a mistake. And when you send this back to the student, you can actually tell them, I'd like for you to work on this a little bit more. You can give them a caption or a note at the bottom and tell them exactly what you'd like them to improve upon. So I'll approve these. And once these are approved, they'll be available in the student's portfolio, so then their family can see it as well. There's also an option for drafts. So if you have something that's ongoing, such as an essay or something that is multiple stages, like a science report or an experiment, you can keep that in draft. The students can keep that in draft mode and then submit it when they're completed with all of the steps. The next thing that you'll see here is the skills tab. This is a way for your students' work to be categorized in accordance with your curriculum standards. So we'll talk about how you can import your specific curriculum standards in a moment, but I wanted you to see what this looks like from the teacher view. So horizontally, you'll see all of the skills associated with this year level, and then vertically, you'll see the students' names for that particular class. Within each of these squares here, you'll see a color as well as a number. So the number is just the number of pieces of work the student has contributed. This particular student, Ashley W., has 6 pieces of work associated with acquiring and accurately using academic and domain-specific words. So I'll click in, and I can see all of those pieces of work here, as well as interact with them. Now, the color aspect is according to the rubric that you can set. This can be anywhere out of 3-point or up to a 6-point scale. So in this example, we used a 4-point scale and made the dark green represent 4 out of 4, or the student has mastered it. So you can see how the student has scored against all of these learning standards. So I'll take a pause here and just want to see if anyone has any questions. Okay. So you'll see here that these were already populated, but you can also create a new skill from scratch. So if I go back to skills view, you'll be able to click here and you can create one. You can customize the rubric. If there's a code associated with it, you can paste that in as well. And then I can always export this data as well. This exports as a CSV file. And that's great if you would like to use this to inform what you want your students to work on, if you have upcoming family teacher conferences or anything like that. Any questions about skills before we go on? Okay. And then the last feature here is the optional blog. This is usually used by teachers who want to showcase a specific theme. If they have a family member that's not regularly using Seesaw, but they want to showcase a student's work, they can use this feature. You also have the ability to password protect this or turn it off completely. I've also seen classes that use this if they have a pen pal across the world. They'll share their URL and then that other class can see what they're working on. You're also able to see what students have contributed as well as what connected blogs there are. And the connected blogs would be, as I mentioned, like the other classes that your class would be able to see. I see we have a question from Laura here. Can you explain what skills are available for teachers to use? Yes, and that's actually a great segue into how the skills get uploaded. That happens in the Seesaw for Schools Administrator dashboard. That's one of the premium features associated with Seesaw for Schools, just like skills and some of the other features we've just covered. So I will go ahead and jump into what the administrator view looks like and what it all entails. Before we go there, you can see these are all the classes that this particular teacher uses, or I'm sorry, teaches, so they can jump in and if a new class is coming in, they can always click into that class. At the end of the school year, they can archive classes that they're no longer teaching. So I'm going to click this gear here in the top left corner, and I'm going to switch to my administrator account. This particular teacher also serves as an administrator in this school. Just by show of hands, a thumbs up, can everyone see it says Sunny Oak School Dashboard? All right, awesome. So this is the administrator dashboard that comes with Seesaw for Schools. We'll cover the skills in just a moment, how they're uploaded. But I wanted to show you this first page. This is the overview tab, and this is the most recent work and engagement for the last week. You can see how many posts have been added. You can see how families have been engaging with student work, and you yourself as the administrator can also engage with students' work. So you'll see that this is one of the most recent things you all just added. So these update in real time. And if I was curious and wanted to see what the prompt was or what the students were working on, I can click in and see everything through the eyes of the teacher. So I, as the administrator, could then go in and like, and then when I'm finished, I can always go back into my administrator view. Here on the right side, you'll see a number of administrator tools. These are changes that you can make across the entire school. So if you wanted to turn off messaging with families, or if you wanted to leave that up to the teachers to decide, you can make those settings here. If you wanted to turn on or off students being able to see each other's work, you can also do that at the administrator level, or you can leave it to the teacher. You can delegate it to teacher. The next tab here is classes. So just as we were able to jump into that year 4 class, you can see all of the classes across this particular school, as well as the engagement stats, how many students are enrolled in each class, and how many family members are connected. The next 2 tabs are similar. This is where you would manage teachers as well as students. You can import your rosters if you already have them. We provide instructions on how you would upload those. So you would be able to do that both at the teacher, student, and class level. And then here in skills, this is how you as the administrator would control what skills are available for your teachers. So Laura, to answer your question, you'd be able to import your school skills. We have a number of different curriculum standards from around the world. This is just a short list of them, but we have a full library of templates. We also provide step-by-step instructions so that you can import these skills. Once they're imported, which happens as a CSV file, the year levels that you select for each standard, or the year levels associated with each standard, dictate what the teachers can see. So in the example class that we were in, that was a year 4 class. So they'll be able to see all of the standards associated with their year level. If they teach multiple, then you can also select those as well. You can put all or other. If you have changes that you want to make, thank you for sharing that out, Joseph. Thank you for sharing that UILF as well. If you wanted to make any changes, or let's say you have some custom skills such as citizenship or helping your peers, things like that, you can also add those in, and you can always customize these by clicking the edit skill button. So I'll take a pause here for you all to view this. Feel free to drop any questions in the chat box as you're exploring this. Okay. Saw PYP on the list. Alrighty. So the next thing that you would be able to access in the administrator dashboard is the analytics tab. This houses all of the pertinent information regarding your students' engagement across the school, how many family members are engaging with students' work, and you can customize this date range. So I'll go ahead and put 2000, let's say 16. And you can customize this date range to be whatever you'd like. And you can see the changes. Let's say your students are coming back from holiday or a break between the years. You'd be able to see the ebbs and flows of their engagement over time. And this is really powerful for schools that like to use that engagement to inform their professional development. If there's an area that you like to focus on, such as increasing family engagement or increasing teacher to student feedback, you can use these statistics to inform what you all would like to focus on. And then the last tab here is the announcements. So you saw a glimpse of that in the teacher view. This is what it would look like if you as an administrator wanted to send an announcement out. You can customize this to be a certain set of classes, just a handful of students, the entire school if you'd like, and those are sent out from here. You'll also be able to see who's viewed it, what the engagement looked like for any particular announcement or newsletter or update that you sent out. So I know that was a ton of information regarding the Seesaw for Schools admin dashboard. I want to just take a step back and see if any questions came up pertaining to the dashboard, how you engage with it, how you make changes across the school. Okay, looks like no questions. I'll take one more moment just in case. Alrighty. So I'm going to go back into presenting. We'll do a quick overview of what we just covered, and then as I mentioned earlier, we have time for Q&A at the end as well. So just to recap some of the things that we've covered within both free version of Seesaw as well as Seesaw for Schools. Within Seesaw for Schools, you'll be able to have access to a portfolio that follows the student year over year. As you may be familiar with the free version, you're starting over from scratch. There's not really any unification between classes or across the school. Those are accounts that are just housed within the teacher's free account. Within Seesaw for Schools, you're able to have that comprehensive progress of your students' work over time. So even at the end of this school year, come late January, early February, you'd be able to see how your students left off from the previous academic year, which is really powerful for figuring out what you'd like to focus on or what refreshers your students may need in the beginning of the year. The next area that we covered was the skills. This is a way for you to link your curriculum standards to Seesaw so that the work your students are contributing has skills that are already tagged to it. If students submit work and you decide after the fact that they have a learning standard that would go great with that or that is associated with it, you can always tag it afterwards. As we went through the Seesaw for Schools admin dashboard, we took a look at ways that you can centrally manage all of the classes from one dashboard. One of the questions that came up in our last session was how many administrators you can have for a given school. So at the school level, you can have up to 25 administrators. That can be folks that work with multiple schools, specific to your school, or any combination. Sometimes we'll see folks at the diocese level are added to each school dashboard. So completely you all's prerogative, but you're able to have whoever you'd like to be an active participant in the students' learning. You can add them as an administrator. Also within the administrator dashboard, we talked about the different ways that you can track engagement and that you can follow analytics over time. As I mentioned, you can customize the date range and also export that information. So if there's ever a specific month or term that you want to look at, you can always customize that date range. Within the teacher view, when you upgrade to Seesaw for Schools, there's a lot more room for collaboration. If any of you have ever taught using the free version of Seesaw, you may notice that there's some limits you run into as you're adding more work, as you're creating more classes. So those limits are actually removed when you upgrade to Seesaw for Schools. Some of those include the number of teachers you can have on a class, So you're not limited to just 2 co-teachers. You can actually have more join on. If you have specialists or folks who work across multiple schools, they can also be added to a class and have visibility into what the students are working on. With your co-teachers, you'll also be able to have private notes in folders, which is great for work that you have assigned out for the future, something that you're not ready to yet push out to your students, or if you just simply have a message you'd like to share with another teacher pertaining to students' work, you can add that within the private notes section. We got a chance to contribute work with you all being the students and myself as the teacher. Some of the other cool things that you can do from the teacher view are schedule out activities. So if there's something that you don't want students to work on until next week or next term, you can actually save those, schedule them out by just selecting on the calendar, and it'll automatically upload for your students. For myself as a former educator, this would have been a game changer when it came to lesson planning. You're able to plan out as far out as you'd like, and it'll automatically be available for your students to complete. We also talked about the drafts feature, which is great for students that are actively working on something in stages or something you'd like to send back to them for revision. And then I mentioned those limitations that you have in the free version. You don't have those limits in Seesaw for schools in terms of activities. So you can add as many activities as you want and not worry about having to remove or archive or delete or anything. So I know that was a ton of information. We have about 15 minutes or so here at the end for questions. Yeah, so I'd like to open this up for you all. Feel free to drop questions in the chat box. If you'd like to ask directly, feel free to do that as well. Is there a skills template? Katie asked, is there a skills template for the Akara learning progressions? We don't currently have that one, but if that's something of interest to you, then we can definitely submit that as a request to be added to our library. So I'll definitely make a note and request that that one be added. Can you explain? So Frank has asked, can you explain how people can move their classes from the free to the paid version of Seesaw? Sure. So it's a very relatively simple process once you're upgrading. For those of you who have a school or organization that's already upgraded, you've been through this flow where you'll have an administrator that can view this dashboard, anyone that you designate as the administrators. Once they have accessed their dashboard for the very first time and logged in, they'll be able to actually approve teachers that are already have already identified themselves as being connected to your school. In the chance that they used the personal email address and did not use the domain that you all use as a school, they can simply just change their email address on their account and nothing is lost in that transition. So as you're approving teachers or adding teachers for the very first time, their work will transfer over seamlessly. So they won't see any difference or any interruption to their service. Did that help to answer your question? Okay. All right, let's see, do we have any other questions coming in? Hancock said this is something I would use too. Yeah, so Hancock and Katie, I'll definitely ask about getting those learning progressions added. And then once those are available, you would see them as a template as well as the others that we just took a look at, and you'd be able to select that one and import it into your administrator dashboard for your school.
Blair, this is Laura. I've got a question about, I understand that students' portfolios will move with them from year to year when we're using Seesaw for schools. Can you explain to me how that works or what that looks like?
Sure, absolutely. So what that means is that all of the students' work will follow them. So let's say this year is wrapping up and the student already has plenty of work up to this point, and then they're starting their new academic year in a couple of months. So what the teacher will see, their new receiving teacher for next year, they'll see a blank slate for that particular class because no work has been contributed there, but they can always click into that student's name, look at their portfolio over time, and be able to click into their old classes. So you can see all of their 2020 classes and click into them. You can then see all their 2019 under that and so on. And then the same thing applies for their connected family members as well. So anything that your students did in the free version, next year the families will still be able to see all of that. They just click in and they'll see all the 2020 classes.
So Blair, it's Karen. Just with that, should we archive classes at the end of the year or not?
Yes, so at the end of the year, what you receive, and we also have a help article I'll share out with you all, is an end of year guide. So that gives you information for wrapping up your Seesaw for Schools classes, archiving them. We strongly encourage you not to delete them unless you absolutely want to, but archiving them just keeps them hidden so that you don't have, this year's 20 classes and next year's 20 classes that you teach. It just keeps them hidden as an archive. For families as well, they're able to download it if they were moving or if they're matriculating, they can take that work with them. So they have options to either view it within Seesaw or they can always download their child's work. Emma has a question. It says, I use Seesaw to upload photos of students on excursions or completing maths science tasks. Is there an easy way to upload multiple photos? At the moment, I have to individually select photos. This takes a long time. Yes, that's a great question. So one of the added features that comes with Seesaw for Schools is multi-page, and that allows you to add multiple pictures to the same post at one time. Oh, and no problem. Feel free to keep adding questions. We have lots of time left over if more things come to mind. Or if you're like me, as soon as I finish listening to a presentation, all my questions come right after I press leave. So I'll be giving my contact information in case you have questions afterwards as well. All right. So if there are no other questions, I did want to share my contact information with you all. As an overview of everything that we covered, we took a look at the free version of Seesaw as well as talked about those upgraded benefits. I'll be getting that information back out to you all about those learning progressions. How much does parent engagement increase with Seesaw? So Mrs. Brennan, are you asking like in general, or how much like across CENet has parent engagement, or how much does it increase with Seesaw for Schools? Could you give a little more context? Across CENet. So I will hop back into what I shared with you all. So this is a snapshot of how engagement has grown over time. These are all-time statistics, and except for the portfolios created, these are only in active class. So this is the number of students in class right now using Seesaw or Seesaw for Schools. This number says 128 in the last week. So if that's any indication, that's a lot of engagement in such a short amount of time. What I've been hearing from individual schools that reach out is that that's one of the key things that they actually look to Seesaw for, is being able to have all their communication in one place, being able to receive messages, being able to get announcements and newsletters out. So just looking at this data here, that gives a lot of evidence that families are really engaging with their students' work. And that's indicative of all times of year. I believe I shared out some data with the central office. It was a few months ago, and the number was still very high. It was rapidly increasing every time we checked to share out updated stats. Carmel has a question. We're wondering if you could give another example of setting up an activity for a class where you need to add response. Sure. So I can actually walk you all through how you actually create an activity. and what that entire process looks like. Going to jump back into the teacher account. Can everyone see the teacher view again? All right, sounds good. So if I wanted to create an activity from scratch, I'll actually walk you through how I created the one that I shared out with you all. You'll see this green circle here with the white plus sign that says add. So I'm going to click that and I'll go to assign activity. Another way you can get there is by going through the activities tab. So I'm going to click assign activity and it will take me to my activity library. So this is any activities that I've saved that I want to share out with my students for me specifically. You can organize these into collections if you like to put them, associate them with a specific subject or anything like that. But I'm going to go ahead and click create new activity. So the first thing that you'll add is an activity name. So I'll use the example name here. You can type instructions for your students. I can also add voice instructions here. I would just click the button to begin recording. And then students will be able to play that back, and I'll show you what that looks like. You can also add multimedia instructions or an example. You can add a photo, a drawing. You can write over it, annotate it. You can also use a voice recording over your drawing. You can record a video. You can add a link to an external page. You can use a note, which is a typed out note, or you can upload from your device or from your Google Drive. Once you've added that example or your multimedia instructions, you can also include a template if you like. So if you had graph paper and you want your students to create a graph over the template that you've provided, you can do that. It'll give you these creative tools options again. And then under more options, these are those private notes or teacher notes that I mentioned. This will only be visible to teachers. So this might be instructions for a subset of students or something that you want to look for, or even the solution to a problem. If you want to put that here and all the other connected teachers for this class can see it. And then lastly, you can tag skills to it. So let's say I wanted to add a drawing. For the person who asked about adding multiple pictures, this would be a place that you can add those. You can also add multiple pages of text or anything else that you'd like to add. I'll just add a background. You can put a note to your students. And then I'll click Save. Now this does not automatically assign it out to the students. This is just you creating the activity, and then once you're ready, you can click this Assign button, and I will go to my 4th grade class. I can select a few students, or I can choose the entire class. I can schedule this out, or I can assign it right now. And then when the students log in, that'll be the first thing that they see for them to work on. Haley asked, can you add more than one template when uploading an activity? Yes, you can. So you can use any combination of those creative tools. If you have multiple pages or anything like that that you like to add, you can use the multi-page feature as well. Okay, and then Karen has provided the link to your evaluation form as well in the chat box in case you haven't seen that. You're welcome, Carmel. All right. Were there any other questions about any of these other areas? I'm happy to go into more detail about any of the aspects of Seesaw or the administrator dashboard. Okay. All right. So I wanted to make sure you all have my contact information. I'll also put it in the chat box for you. But my email address is blair@seesaw.me. If you want to just explore our website, if you're not as familiar with Seesaw, you can feel free to visit our website at web.seesaw.me. Mrs. Brennan asked, are there lots of help features within Seesaw? So we actually have an entire help page that's dedicated to frequently asked questions. The community can collaborate there as well. You can ask other teachers questions. And that is, I'll go ahead and pull it up for you. This is the Seesaw Help Center. And I'll put this in the chat box as well in case you all are. Oh, thank you for adding my email address, Mark. And you'll see a number of different themes here, things around remote learning, basics, beyond the basics, which is great as you're making that transition over to Seesaw for Schools. It goes a little bit beyond just how you would create the activity and different ways that you can customize based on your year level. There's a lot of FAQs for administrators as well. Troubleshooting. There's also a family help page for families that are having any questions for how to get signed on. We also feature sample consent letters that you can share out with you can customize and share out with your family members as the year kicks off. And then also just more information about Seesaw in general. And
Blair,
then here at the bottom, oh, I'm sorry.
Go Blair, go Blair.
Oh, no, you're fine. I was just going to say at the bottom is a community browse. So if you have questions and you'd like to just ask the general public, like other teachers, or if you want to connect with other teachers around like ideas for your classroom, you can do that as well.
Blair, I was just going to ask, and I may have missed it, can you talk a little bit about the ambassador program?
Sure. So the ambassador program used to be a process where you would apply to be an ambassador, but we've actually expanded the program to include more educators of all levels within Seesaw. So everyone can start out as a pioneer with Seesaw. That's for teachers that are just getting started, those who have been around using Seesaw for quite some time. And then once they've been engaging with Seesaw and using the platform for 3 years, then they're invited to become an ambassador. So within the ambassador program, those are the folks that are usually the go-to for questions that come up. You can also you can designate administrators who have been working with the platform for a while as well. But those are usually like great point people for questions that come up. If your teachers are struggling to get set up, or if they have any like complex concerns or anything like that, they can reach out to their ambassador at their school or their ambassador within their diocese or organization. And they're always a great point person to help them out. And those who are in the ambassador program, I'll actually send you this link as well. And I will put this here in the chat box. And then along the way, as you're an ambassador, you'll also have access to professional development options. There's always our free webinars, which are available to everyone, but they're always things that ambassadors specifically can join. They like to connect on Facebook and they talk to teachers that are trying new things in their classrooms. So that's always an option as well for collaboration. Okay.
Thanks, Blair.
No problem. All right, everyone. So looks like there are no more questions, but as always, you can feel free to reach out to me. Mark has left my email address in the chat box. I'll put it here so it's at the bottom. And that's blair@seesaw.me. I thank you all so much for taking the time out to join. Narita has a question about the evaluation, Karen.
I'll look into that.
Just having a look at it. Thanks. Thanks, Karen.
But yes, as I was saying, I thank you all so much for taking the time to join. Thank you for your questions, for participating in my little activity about fun things. Thank you, Marianne, for happy Thanksgiving. Thank you all so much. Looking forward to some much needed rest and relaxation. It feels like this is like the first holiday break all year. So definitely excited for that. If you all have any other questions or want me to dive deeper into anything, feel free to reach out. I definitely encourage you to explore that help center. There's a wealth of information there, no matter what level you are with working with Seesaw, whether you're brand new to it or if you're one of our veterans. So thank you all so much and have a great week.
Okay.
Thanks,
thank
Blair.
you.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you,
Bye.
Blair. Great job. So I'm just trying to work our way across to this particular screen where we have a link to our evaluation. Now, the one person who asked that they didn't have permissions, it does collect your email address. So you need to be logged into your CENet Google account. I think that was probably the issue with that. To go back to thanking Blair, wonderful session. I learned a lot about Seesaw, and those usage statistics are great. I can't wait to see them grow. And connecting with 70,000 odd families, is absolutely amazing. I think that was it from memory. So congratulations to all the teachers who've been doing that. Thank you for sharing your knowledge. We really appreciate it. And I have a feeling at some other point we'll be getting back in contact to take it to the next level or provide whatever level it is that people need out there. So make sure when you're filling out the evaluation, the more effort you can put into the evaluation, the better able we are to meet your needs with forthcoming events. I'd also like to thank my Chloe team partners, who many of them came here to support in the background. So thank you to everybody who's there to make this happen. And Joe, you seem to know a lot about Seesaw as well. So thank you for throwing in all your tips, even if your pre-event entertainment was a little bit lackluster. So thank you very much to everybody. Thank you, Blair. We can hang around for a little bit longer, but if you've got somewhere to go, please do.
Thanks, Blair. Thanks, Mark. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks so much, everyone. Thank you so much for your hard work. That 6.5 million pieces of work is because of all the hard work you all have done for your students. So thank you so much. Bye.
Thank you. Thanks,
Bye.
everybody.